A lot of people want to know how to get close to birds without disturbing them, or how to deepen their connection beyond just simply identification. One of the quickest and most effective ways to do this is to quiet your mind. All of that chatter, that busyness, that blah, 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 the worry, all of that, it keeps us focused inward on ourselves rather than outward on the natural world. Hey friends, welcome back to the Mindful Bird Sit. If you're new here, my name is Kristi, and I help people connect deeply to birds and nature while elevating their skills and boosting their confidence in the process. If that's something that you want to do, be sure to subscribe and stick around. All right, let's get started. So today what I'm going to do is we're going to have two distinct segments where we're going to be in silence for both of those. But the first segment, we're going to be with our eyes closed. And the second segment of our eyes open if you want to. That's just an invitation to have your eyes open. You can certainly keep them closed if you prefer. The other thing I wanted to say is that while we're doing this practice, that we're not striving for a silent mind. I know sometimes people think that when you meditate, you really want your mind to be silent. And I think that's a big battle and a war that we have with ourselves. It's more just a quieting of our mind and a softening. And so to do that, we're going to be looking to our own bodies as guides for that. So looking to the parts of us that are quiet and soft already, like our breath and our heartbeat. Those are parts of ourselves that are always in the background, but they're nice and steady. They're doing their thing, right? Sometimes they're louder than they need to be, or maybe that they do need to be whatever they're being in the moment, but they're not always quiet, of course, but for the most part, it's the quiet part of ourselves, our breath and our heartbeat. And so we're going to be looking to those today to be our guides. Oh yeah, the other thing is that we're going to give our minds a job, which is a good thing for the mind to do, to have a job. And so a couple of sessions ago, I talked about something that my teacher, Dr. Wu, shares. He's my Chinese doctor in Connecticut. And he talked about these three words. I think it came from the Tao Te Ching. And it's I am air, I am I am air, I am, is it light? I'm going to forget the second one. And I am water flow. And then the other two words that were in there are I am everything and I am nothing. So yeah, it is I am air, I am light, I am water flowing, and then I am nothing and I am everything. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do today is choose just one of those words that resonates with you. So I'm going to say them all again and just tap in and just see which of these words is going to be my focus word today. Which one is speaking to me in this moment? Even if you feel resistance to it, maybe there's one that's kind of calling your name. So I am air, I am light, I am water flow. And the other two are I am everything and I am nothing. So just see which one of those words calls to you, which one is speaking to you, and that's going to be your word of focus. So when your mind does start to wander, I'm going to ask you two things. One is to say that word. So first we're going to be focusing on that word if your mind does start to wander, and on your in-breath, you'll say, for instance, I am air. And on your exhale, you're just going to let the pause be there. You're going to let the quietness be there. And then next inhale, I am air. And just let the quietness and the pause be on your exhale. Now, if your mind, and when your mind does start to wander, the other thing I'm going to ask you to do is to be really gentle with yourself. This is a time where a lot of people get critical or judgmental, like, my mind was thinking about groceries or dinner tonight or whatever it is, and like bad mind, or bad mind. So just be really playful, be really soft with your mind and be like, hey, look, I see you're wandering over there. Like, come on back and breathe with me for a little bit, like let's focus on this. And just be gentle and kind to yourself when that happens, okay? All right, so get yourself nice and set up wherever you are, inside or outside. And if you are, obviously, I always say this, inside, then go ahead and crack a window so that you can hear the outdoor world as we go through this practice. And let's start off by just feeling our bodies right now, just noticing your own rhythm in this space and time right now. What are the sensations that you're feeling in your body? Can start inward first, so any sensations on the inside of your body. Maybe some aches in your muscles. There might be some openness that you feel in certain parts of your body. You can tap into your heartbeat, your breath. I know for me right now, I have a little bit of a runny nose. Great. And now let's follow our breath a little bit more intently. So on your next inhale, just imagine it rising from the soles of your feet. Nice deep inhale into your body and just allow that to travel all the way up your body. And then your exhale just lets it fall and float away. Your inhale comes back in from the soles of your feet, traveling all the way up your ankles, your knees, your hips, your belly, your chest, your shoulders, your arms, the back of your neck, up to your head, and letting it go out the crown of your head. And now you can do that a few times on your own, just allowing your breath to come in from the soles of your feet first, and filling your body, filling every bit of your body that you can with that beautiful, fresh breath. Noticing as you are inhaling what the smell is on the air today and the feeling of the breath coming into your nose. Does it feel cool? Does it feel dry? What does it feel like right now? Maybe it's moist. Great work. So now we're going to bring our attention to our ears. And let's stretch them far out today. Usually we start relatively close to ourselves. So let's first start with our sense of hearing stretched as far as we can. What's the furthest sound you can tap into right now in this moment? Nice. And then if you noticed one in one particular direction, see if there is another sound pretty far away in a slightly different direction. And as you're listening, you can just tap in, notice the vibe that's out there with those sounds. Is there a steadiness, a rhythmic nature to those sounds? Is it calm? Maybe it's distressed. Maybe it's agitated. It could be animal, it could be human, whatever you're hearing. And now, keeping your awareness on that furthest sound, bring your sense of hearing in a little bit, maybe to 100 yards away or so. And just do a circle around yourself and just start to get a sense of who's around you at about 100 yards in all directions. Noticing if there's more movement in one direction, more action, and is there more quietness in another direction? Or maybe it's balanced. And now come into about 10 to 15 feet away from you and do the same thing, but this time go in the other direction. So listen in a circle around you, but the other direction, just about 10 feet out from where you are right now. Very good. Are you still hearing that furthest sound right now? Is that sound still existing in your experience? Maybe it's past. Beautiful. All right, now, so I think all of you have experience with owl eyes, but just for those who don't, so I don't have to share it later, we can practice that for just a moment. So find a point off in the distance. We'll be using this later once we open our eyes. Find one point to look at, and it'll be good to sort of choose your point now. So find a place to focus on, anywhere from about, 8 feet away to you can go 100 or more. And then once you find your point, you're going to stay locked on that point with your eyes, but you're going to expand your vision in all directions. And what you may start to notice is the further out you expand in all directions, the softer and maybe more blurry your vision becomes. And that's just perfect. So let your vision become soft and blurry. And just see what you start to pick up on. What subtle movements or motions might you start to key in on now? Very good. All right, so now we're going to begin the first part of our practice with our eyes closed. So if you feel like you're in a safe place, go ahead and close your eyes and bring into your mind that word that you're going to focus on, whichever word you chose. And remember, on your inhale, you're going to speak the word, and on your exhale, you're just going to allow for the pause to exist before the next word is spoken. And you can also sit in silence without saying the word if you like, but it's a really good sort of tactic, I suppose you could say, for when your mind does start to get busy and wander, is to have that focal point of the word to come back to with your breath. All right, so I'm going to let us sit in silence for longer than we usually do. And I'll let you know when it's time, if you'd like, to open your eyes. So just enjoy the gift of silence for a little while today. Good work, everybody. So, you're welcome to keep your eyes closed for the second half, or you can gently open them, find your point of focus, and go into owl eyes. And do your best to stay in owl eyes for as long as you can. And just like our mind and the busyness of our mind, if you see something like a bird, if you are able to do so, just allow it to be. Allow it just to be where it is without having to chase after it with your thoughts or your mind, with your curiosity. Just let it be as it is. And also, you can use your word again if your mind does start to wander. And we'll be sitting in silence for about the same amount of time. Good work. So take the next moment or two and offer gratitude or a blessing to any of those ones that you connected with today, and especially that word. Just offer a blessing to that word that you were focused on as well. See how that goes. All right. So, for anyone who has to head out right now, thank you for coming and playing. It was really good to be with you today. And for those of you who want to stay for our chat, please do. Um, I'd love to hear from anyone. Let's stick first with the stories from this experience. So, anyone who has a story to relate from today, if you have stories about anything in the previous week, then we'll save those for the end. So, for right now, we'll just stick with the experience from today. Anyone want to start us off? Yeah, Cheryl, please.
I was hearing so many new sounds. I was desperately wanting to open my eyes and look over and see where they were. So I just turned my head and listened to where they were. And then when we could open our eyes, I was so tempted to un-owl eyes my eyes, but I thought, no, no, I don't need to do that because I will let those birds just have their space, and I'll probably see them at another time. So it was very refreshing not to be frantically looking. And I used my word over and over throughout this whole experience to bring me back to what it was I was doing by being here today.
Oh, that's great, Cheryl. Thank you. Yeah, this is a great time of year to practice with owl eyes, not focusing on the birds and being frantic in that way, because for the most part, the majority of us can pretty much be sure that the birds that are here are the ones that are going to be here for the winter. There's likely not going to be a rare species. You know, if we did this in the springtime, I could see that it would bring up probably too much anxiety within us to try to not see who that bird is because we'd want to know, is that a rare warbler that just came through? Because it could be. So yeah, now's a nice time to practice owl eyes and not get fixated on what the bird could be, you know, and figuring it out. So nice work, Cheryl. Yeah, well done. Well done. Sweet. Who else would like to share? Yeah, Anne Marie, good to see you outside. Hi.
Hi, I made it back from therapy,
It's
and this was good therapy. I used two words. I used the air and water, and water was very significant because we're having a bit of a melt today. So I could hear the drips coming from the rain spout in different places, as well as then feel my own water on my lips or things like that. And then when we were in owl eyes, it, because I relax, and I found this whenever I'm at a bird sit, it's like more come, and there's more birds fluttering all around me. So that was just, it's very special because they just seem to, oh, she's just over there. She's not interested, in like attacking me or anything. I can still flutter around. So it was very peaceful.
Oh, that's right on. I was hoping someone would have that experience because that is often what can happen. It doesn't always happen, but it can happen where when we quiet our minds and we're just being, that nature gets comfortable with us because we're not a threat. We're not disturbing the peace, right? With our thoughts. And so I'm glad that was your experience today, Emery. How beautiful. Thank you. All right, who else? Actually, while you're all pondering, I'll share my experience. So my word was air. So I am air, and here in the South, the birds are already starting to sing. They actually started to sing almost right after the solstice. Kind of in sort of these different groupings, like sort of three new voices came on the scene a day, three new songs. And so I started to hear a bluebird singing kind of up in the trees a little distance away. And and I noticed my thoughts getting distracted, so I went back to my word. And as I was saying, I am air, like all of a sudden I was up there with that bluebird and I was his voice. Like as air, I was his voice, like his song. It was like coming out of his bill. And then another moment, I felt the air like touch my cheek, and I was like, wow. Again, it was supposed to be to like quiet my mind, right? But I did have thoughts coming in about it. And I thought, air is so much. Like air gets to experience so much. It's sound. Air is sound and or a part of sound, and air is like has this physical aspect to it, where it's like it touches us. And yeah, I never thought much about air in that way before. And it was beautiful how it was just coming to me. It wasn't like I was forcing the thought or trying to think about what air is. It was just like by being air, by letting myself like be air and sort of expand into what was possible with that. That's when sort of the awareness of all these different elements of air came to me. So I felt really grateful for like just having that experience today and being still with air. Yeah. All right. Who else would like to share? Anne, please. Yeah, yeah.
I picked the word nothing because first I thought, well, I'm not nothing. And I thought, well, maybe you need to think about that word today. And kind of when you're looking out there, that it's okay to be nothing. I don't have to be everything all the time, just to sit back and let everything else be. I don't have to be, I don't have to, I'm not in control of what the birds are doing right now. I'm not in control of the temperature. It's going to be. So right now I can just, and turning it into a positive because it seemed like a negative word when I heard it first. I'm nothing. And I thought, well, that doesn't, how can I change my mindset? And it was okay to be nothing today. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I remember, I don't know if you were here the last time that we did this practice, and the people who we did all five words together, but I think a lot of people, when they got to the word nothing, they had that similar experience where they're like, I'm not nothing. Like, hang on a second here, you know? But then when they allowed themselves to just be nothing, it was this grand, I think Susie had that experience. It was this like grand sense of freedom. It's like, oh my gosh, I could be nothing. Like, I don't have to be in charge of the birds and the weather and the temperature and the this and the politics and the every. I could just be nothing. Like, yeah, it's this really beautiful sense of freedom and permission. And wow. And that's huge. I'm really glad you had got to have that experience. Yeah. Congratulations. Who else? It doesn't have to be profound, by the way, if you had something to share. And oftentimes it is, even if you think it's not. Great. Well, if yeah, we don't have to you don't have to have anything. So if no one else has anything, want to make sure before we go. Y'all feeling? Yeah, okay. Linda, I thought you might, and Julia after Linda. Okay, great.
Actually, it's kind of related to this, but it's an experience from this week too. My bird feeders just became empty for like 2 or 3 days in a row, and I looked and looked and looked every day this week. I didn't see the sharpie or the Coopers that Cooper's hawk that periodically come through at all. But I'd hear the blue jays alarming, but I didn't see anything. So then the third day, when there was hardly any, some birds started to come, but the chickadees come, blue jays wouldn't come. They were just alarming. So I was just a little bit vigilant. And I just happened to look out while I was doing something else. I looked out a window I don't usually look out of, and oh my gosh, there was a little bird flying frantically, and right behind it was a Sharpie. And they went up and down, and I ran to the other side of the house, but they disappeared. So I don't know Sharpie got it or not. I'm hoping not. But I mean, I love the raptors, but uh, it's still, I feel like I'm putting out a smorgasbord for them, you know? So I kept the bird feeders in for like 3 or 4 days, and I just put them out this morning. And so during this sit, I was listening really closely, and I didn't hear any alarming. And then with owl eyes, I was just keeping my eyes open for anything that was moving way too fast. I just, but without looking for it, I just was like aware. And so far, no show from the Sharpie. So I, I think I will bring my bird feeders in though, just so I don't tempt them, because I'm getting a whole bunch of pine siskins, and they're so noisy, and there's so many of them, and they're like a waving, cafeteria's open. So anyway, that was my experience this morning. I'm grateful that the birds were, the chickadees and the juncos and some of the pine siskins and sparrows were able to get a little bit of food. And I hope that the Sharpie was getting food somewhere else. So that was
Yeah,
it.
I know that. I mean, you're absolutely right. Like you put a bird feeder out and it literally is a bird feeder. Like it will feed the birds and it will feed the birds, you know. The birds will feed the birds.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
but that's a really smart thing to do actually is to take, for like we take the feeders in one when we notice a sick bird, like if there's a sick bird in the flock, then we take them in
Mhm.
and for a while clean them whatever and keep them away, until that flock maybe moves on or the sickness maybe has had time to clear. But also, if there's a predator, that's a really, really good idea to help them change that pattern, especially in the wintertime where it's harder to find food. It's especially if it's a
Mhm.
younger one, a younger raptor, they'll go for whatever's easy. And so, yeah, that's a good idea just to help change. If it's something you don't want to see, you don't want to feed the Sharpie in your own yard, then yeah, taking in the feeders is a good alternative. I know some people want to know about that. I think the only caution I would say, and I think you're really wise to all this, Linda. So I'm not speaking to you necessarily, just like to the group in general, but if there's a cold spell coming or a storm coming, I would say that would be the time. You just want to, I think, leave the feeders up or maybe be more specific.
Yeah.
Maybe put them out first thing in the morning, take them in during the day, and then put them out before sunset for like an hour
Mhm.
before sunset or so. That's like the prime times when the birds really need the food is like right when they wake
Okay.
up in the morning and before they go to bed to give them that nourishment. So you can also do it where it's not taking in the whole day, but just for like those time periods as well. You know,
Mhm.
yep, yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, nice job, Linda. Thanks for
Thank
your
you.
story. That's rad.
Sure. You bet.
Yeah. All right, Julia, you had a story for us.
Well, no, this is a question really. This morning, there was mention on the radio about some animals being rescued in California from the
Uh-huh.
fires. I wonder, do we know anything about the birds? Are they able to fly out of the way of the fire? Are they able to evacuate? Um, and I think here, the eagle nests are becoming active, so it is nesting time for some birds, I would guess there too. And so do we know
Yeah.
any?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't specifically know, but just from seeing how the fire started and watching it, just watching some videos on it, I think the birds, there probably was a bird or two that got caught in the midst of it, or maybe, but when they start to see what's happening and get that feel like they're going to get out of there, so for the most part, and birds have an easier time than like a deer, for instance, to like get up and fly a different direction versus like a deer who might, they'll run away from it, but if the fire jumps the road or jumps a tree, and then like they could get caught in the fire and not have an escape route, whereas a bird has a much easier time of that. And yeah, the ones that would be in danger aren't necessarily the adult, like the adult eagle, for instance. They can leave and flee, but it would be the young ones or the eggs. They would abandon their nest in that case. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And that would, Della, Cheryl, do you guys have any sense of any of that at all from your vantage point up there in Northern California or the northern part? Yeah. Della, go for it. Yeah.
Well, I don't have any answers, but I have questions. And For example, right now is raptor, hawk, and owl breeding season.
Yep.
So they're starting and they're starting to establish their territories. So if they have to flee, I assume that they lose their territory and they have to reestablish that somewhere.
Yep.
And they're reconnecting with their mates. So I can imagine that it's pretty chaotic for them, but I don't know. I don't have any answers. And there's very little written on the subject that I found.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Interesting.
good question. What happens
Yeah.
to the birds during all of this?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's certainly a disruption. We can't like it's definitely disrupting certain birds and their breeding. The good thing is that in the warmer parts of the world, like parts of California, like where I am here, like yeah, the raptors are starting to nest right now and have been nesting for a while. But because it's so warm, they could have an opportunity to try again. It's not like they're one of the northern species who it's like, all right, you got this one period of time, and if you don't have it now, like you sort of lose out on the season. So I would think that they would have, although what happens with the eagles down here was sort of surprising to me when I got here last year, that I think it's by like in the next month or so, even before then, I think in like the end of January, if not February, where the young eagle's already fledging and they're leaving and then the eagles leave. And I don't know if, but I'm really curious about where these eagles who are already nesting and are already having young go, and do they have another brood like somewhere else? Like, are they then going to Northern California and, raising young up there? Or are they just kind of like free birds at that point and they're just like, sweet, we did our thing. Like now we're just gonna get to hang out. Like, I don't know what they do. So, I said that like they could try again, but I don't know. Like they choose to nest early for a reason, likely because of prey, because it's usually lined up with prey, right? So they nest at a time when it's going to be prime for the other birds to be nesting and starting to have their young so they can come in. But honestly, with a bird like an eagle, nesting so soon, like I did see a crow start to gather nesting material the other day. And I've seen mockingbirds start to just defend territory, but I haven't seen any of the small birds start to nest yet. So I don't know, but I mean, eagles aren't going for like small birds for the most part. They are going to go for fish, and again, not 100%. They will go for mammals as well. They're sort of opportunists. They'll go for whatever they can. Um, yeah, anyway, I don't know. It is an interesting conversation to have and questions to ask. And if anyone does find research on that, please let us know the next time we gather if you discover anything. Anne, did you have something to share?
I just pulled up, it was an Audubon article on 2020, and they were talking about mega fires, and they still don't know the impact. I just kind of quickly skimmed it, but most of the questions were the same ones we had, and there's ongoing study now. So I guess you'd have to dig a little deeper to find out in the last 5 years if they've, come up with other,
Yeah,
they talked about, how to, if you're in neighborhoods or whatever, how to help the
mm,
birds that are in stress by putting water and food out for them and that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
I think they're still studying the big impacts, because then they talk about the migration and how they're ending up in other places. And they're
yes.
coming in injured and sick, and there's too many of them. So,
Yeah, yeah, and that's sort of the lucky thing at the moment is that migration is not happening. So
right.
typically these big fires don't happen until the fall, until the like the end of summer, fall, and that's sadly when migration is happening. So it does deeply impact. We saw lots of effects from there was I think maybe in 2020, I forget when it was, but there were some big fires out west. I think in California actually, if I remember correctly, that caused a whole bunch of birds to leave earlier. I don't think they had gotten the stores up that they needed, and they were just sort of like falling from the skies in certain places because they didn't have the energy to travel. But this is a little different just because it's more localized, and And it was, yeah, just sort of this sudden localized kind of occurrence. Not that it's not a massive area and lots of, land is impacted for sure. But I think it's a little bit different than what happens during migration. Yeah, and the kinds of birds that are going to get impacted by it, and the number probably of birds that will be impacted by it. This seems maybe a little bit easier for them to go and find sort of like temporary housing, if you will, right now, because they're not nesting. They're not, except for the big raptors. It'd be interesting to see what the story is with them. And there is a guy, JD Bergman, I think it is. He's from California. Do you know him, Della? JD Bergman. I forget I don't know how we got connected somehow through something we had done, but he runs like this raptor, or not raptor, but he runs like a bird rehab group. I'd have to find out, but he's usually pretty tapped in. So I'll see if he's posted anything about this, and maybe what his experience is. It'd be interesting to hear from him actually what he has to say. Kind of along those lines of migration and birds singing, I did want to say that that I am really curious, because I kept telling myself when I would hear the first song, like I heard the very first vocalization or noise, I should say, that was like a mating noise here. And I was like, oh, these birds are already starting to do this. But I was going to write it down and write down who it was and the progression of like who sang first. So I really would love to know, when you hear the first breeding sound in your area, to journal it and let me know, because I really want to know, see if there's some correlation to like what birds start singing first or making their vocalizations of mating, because it can be different sounds. Which birds start first in your area? So if you do start to hear a song all of a sudden, it's like, oh, this is a full-on song. This isn't just like a chip or a partial song. This is like a song. Then make a note and let me know, okay? Because I would be really curious to know that the pattern that happens in your area and if it's consistent around. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Great questions. Yeah, thinking about all of you out there in the California area, and stay safe, everybody, and much love. Enjoy.